For decades, the galaxy lived with an unanswered question. What had happened to the missing human fleets? Entire armadas of powerful warships had left their stations one by one, vanishing into the dark without a trace. Some alien historians said they were destroyed in secret battles. Others whispered that the humans had turned against themselves, fighting wars so brutal that none survived. But the truth was stranger, and far more terrifying than any rumor could capture. Aliens across the stars told stories in low voices. They spoke of the Terrans, strange creatures born from a death world, a place so hostile that survival itself was proof of madness. Every alien empire remembered the wars against humanity. They remembered how humans had fought with ships smaller, weaker, and less advanced than theirs, and yet still found ways to win. Even when outnumbered, humans refused to surrender. They learned, adapted, and fought until their enemies lay broken. That was the old fear. But now, with the fleets gone, many dared to hope that humanity's era of war was finally over. Then came the first signal. It was faint, distorted, carried by ancient frequencies no one had used in centuries. A lone probe drifting near the galactic edge picked it up. At first, technicians thought it was noise, but when the sound was decoded, silence filled the control rooms. It was a human voice, calm, steady, and impossibly old. We are not gone. We are watching. And when the time comes, we will return. The words spread like wildfire. Across alien councils, leaders stared at one another in shock. If the humans were alive, where had they gone? And why had they waited for so long? But the fear grew sharper when new reports arrived. Merchant ships claimed to have seen shadows moving across distant stars. Whole star systems blinked with strange distortions, as if something too massive for sensors to measure was passing silently between suns. The galaxy had long feared human ships. But these were different. A lone alien patrol ship was the first to face the truth. Its crew had been ordered to investigate gravitational anomalies near the border. The captain, a veteran of many battles, dismissed the reports as superstition. But then, as their ship drifted into the dark between systems, the stars themselves seemed to vanish. Not dim, not hidden, vanish. Something vast had blocked them out. At first, the crew thought they were near a rogue planet, but the instruments disagreed. The object before them moved slow and deliberate, with power so immense that its gravity waves shook their hull. A shape emerged from the void, metal, endless, and terrifying. It was a warship, but no one had ever seen a warship like this. Its hull stretched across the void like a floating continent. Its engines glowed brighter than suns, burning with a power that could split planets. Cannons, launch bays, and weapons lined its surface in countless numbers, each one the size of cities. The patrol ship's alarms screamed in despair, unable to calculate the size. The computers kept giving the same impossible answer. Vessel size exceeds planetary scale. The alien captain, his voice trembling, whispered the only word he could: impossible. Then the ship spoke. Across every channel, every frequency, came the sound of an ancient human signal. No translation was needed. The words carried across the void with the weight of history. We have returned. Stand aside. The alien crew froze. Some fell to the ground, trembling. Others scrambled to activate the engines. But no one dared to fire. To fight this ship was madness. To resist was suicide. They turned, engines burning, fleeing back to their empire with the message that would shake the galaxy. Humanity had returned, and their warships were now larger than worlds. When news reached the great alien councils, panic spread faster than any war. The Xerac Empire, proud and merciless, screamed for immediate war preparations. The Erythian Union, scholars and diplomats, argued for peace, but no voice could calm the fear in their hearts. Every alien remembered the wars of the past. They remembered how small human ships had fought with cunning and fire until empires crumbled. And now Now those same humans commanded ships so vast they could eclipse suns. Some asked a dangerous question. If humans had gone missing for decades, where had they been? What had they been building in the silence? And why had they come back now? The answer lay deep in the void, in places no alien dared to search. The human fleets had not vanished in weakness. They had gone in silence, hidden from all eyes, preparing. For what? No one knew. But one truth echoed across the stars with a weight that crushed every council. Humanity had returned stronger than ever, and the galaxy would never be the same. The alien council halls shook with fear. Reports of the human warship had already spread across the stars. No empire could ignore the truth any longer. The Terrans had returned, and their ships were not just larger, they were beyond imagination. The Xeric Empire was the first to call an emergency meeting. Their warlords filled the chamber, armored in black metal, their claws tapping in anger against the polished stone floor. The supreme warlord stood tall, his voice echoing across the chamber. "We must strike first," he roared. "If we wait, they will crush us. Their ships may be vast, but their numbers cannot be endless. Destroy them before they gather strength." But even as he spoke, his generals shifted uneasily. They had seen the recordings, the shadow of a ship that blotted out entire starfields. One general, his scales trembling, muttered quietly, "How do we fight a world that moves? Our weapons will do nothing." Far across the galaxy, in the shining towers of the Erythian Union, a very different debate took place. The Erythians were scholars, not soldiers. They valued peace above all else, but even they felt the cold grip of dread. Chancellor Valora, her silver skin glowing under the council lights, raised her voice. "We cannot fight them. We must speak to them. The humans once made alliances. Perhaps they will again. War is death. We must send envoys before it is too late." But her advisors looked at her with disbelief. One of them slammed his hand against the table. "Envoys? Chancellor, you forget what humans are. They do not forgive. They do not forget. If they have built these warships, they are not seeking peace. They are seeking conquest." Meanwhile, across countless systems, ordinary people, alien farmers, miners, traders, spoke of nothing else. In taverns and market squares, whispers spread like poison. Stories grew with each telling. Some claimed the human ships were powered by suns chained within their cores. Others said they carried weapons that could split planets in half. Fear turned into panic, and panic into chaos. Trade routes shut down, armies deserted, whole colonies prepared to evacuate. And still, the humans had not attacked. Their silence was more frightening than war. On a lonely moon near the galactic rim, a secret gathering took place. Representatives of 5 powerful empires met in the dark, far from the eyes of their people. They were desperate, united only by fear. The Xeric warlord growled, "We must unite our fleets. 1,000 ships for every human vessel. Overwhelm them, with numbers before they spread further." The Erythian diplomat shook her head. "Numbers mean nothing. Do you not understand? Their single ship radiated gravity strong enough to bend your patrols. What will 1,000 of your ships do against one of theirs?" The third voice, belonging to a pale insectoid queen, trembled as she spoke. "Perhaps they are not infinite. Perhaps they only have a few of these monsters." But the fourth representative, an old reptilian strategist, closed his eyes and whispered the thought that froze them all. "Do you not see? They disappeared for decades. They did not die. They built. And if they built one, they built many. We do not face a few giants. We face a storm." The chamber fell silent. Each leader felt the same fear. If humanity had hidden a way to create these war machines, then how many more were waiting beyond the edge of known space? And then came the second message. It was broadcast across every frequency, unstoppable, reaching every ship, every colony, every council. The voice was human, calm, steady, and filled with a quiet power. "We are not your enemy, or not yet. But the galaxy must prepare. The void beyond your stars awakens. We built these ships not for conquest, but for survival. Those who stand against us will fall. Those who follow us will live. The message was both a warning and a choice. For some, it gave hope. For most, it gave only terror. In the Xerac Empire, the warlords raged, calling the humans liars. They swore to fight until their blood turned the stars red. In the Erythian Union, many cried for surrender, begging their leaders to submit before it was too late. On distant worlds, rebellions rose, with alien citizens declaring they would rather serve humanity than die under their own corrupt rulers. The galaxy trembled, caught between war and fear, between submission and hope. And yet no one truly understood what the humans had seen in the void, what had driven them to build ships larger than worlds. But one truth was certain. The humans had returned not as wanderers, not as survivors, but as rulers. Their silence had ended, and their shadow now stretched across every star. And as the alien empire struggled to decide their fate, one question echoed through the void, whispered by every species, every leader, every frightened soul. If this is only the beginning, what comes next? The galaxy had lived in fear of rumors. But soon, fear would no longer be built on whispers. It would be carved into memory. Near the border of the Xerac Empire, a squadron of alien patrol ships drifted in silent formation. Their commander, Admiral Kreth, was a seasoned warrior, his carapace scarred from decades of battles. He had fought humans before, long ago, when their fleets were small but dangerous. He remembered how even then, with fragile ships and weaker weapons, the humans had found ways to win. Now he had been ordered to prove that the rumors were false, that the humans were bluffing, that their world ships were only tricks of the void. The patrol moved carefully, sensors stretched to their limits. Space seemed empty, calm. Kreth almost believed the rumors were lies until the stars ahead began to vanish. Not dim, not covered. Vanish. The crew scrambled, adjusting their sensors. Massive gravitational waves struck their ships, shaking hulls and bending readings. Kreth felt his stomach twist as the darkness ahead began to take form. Slowly, impossibly, a shadow emerged. At first it looked like a drifting asteroid, then perhaps a rogue moon. But as the object turned, cold metal reflected the faint light of distant suns. It was no rock. It was no planet. It was a ship, a human warship. The Xerac ship stopped moving, their engines trembling under the invisible pull of the giant vessel. It stretched beyond their vision, a fortress that seemed endless. Its hull was layered with armor thicker than mountains. Towers of weapons rose like city skylines, and its engines, glowing blue-white, burned with a power that could tear the way. Void apart. Report its size, Kreth barked. The technicians worked furiously, but every reading came back broken. Finally, one officer whispered, "Admiral, the ship's length exceeds planetary scale. It is bigger than worlds." The words froze the bridge. Kreth himself staggered. For all his years, for all his battles, he had never imagined such a thing. Then the ship spoke. A low vibration filled every channel, every frequency. It was not an attack, not yet. It was a message, one that pierced through every defense. A human voice, calm, steady, unshaken, echoed in their minds. "We are humanity. We warned you. We have returned." The Xerac officers trembled. Some screamed, covering their ears as if the voice could be shut out. But Kreth stood frozen, his claws trembling. He remembered human voices from the old wars. They had been fierce, desperate, determined. This voice was different. It was colder, stronger, as if it carried the weight of countless years, countless battles, countless preparations. Suddenly, the human ship's weapons activated, not fired, but revealed. Giant cannons rotated, glowing faintly with power. Missile. Bays opened, each missile the size of the Xerac patrol ships themselves. Energy cores throbbed with a hum that shook the stars. It was not an attack. It was a demonstration. The Zirak ships, though trained for war, could not hold their ground. One by one, their engines flared as they turned and fled. Admiral Kreth stayed long enough to watch the impossible size of the human ship blot out the cosmos before retreating with his fleet. His report was short, his voice shaking as he delivered it. The humans have returned. Their ships are worlds of war. We cannot fight them. The news spread faster than light. Across alien networks, images and recordings of the colossal vessel played endlessly. Fear turned into pure panic. Citizens demanded protection. Armies refused to deploy. Entire colonies began to abandon their planets, convinced that no defense would hold. But the humans did not pursue. They did not destroy. The giant ship drifted past the Zirak border, silent, unstoppable, leaving only terror in its wake. In the Erythian Union, leaders replayed the footage again and again, trying to understand. Chancellor Valora whispered the question, haunting every mind. If this is only one ship, how many more are waiting? No one had the answer. But deep within the void, more shadows were already moving. Entire constellations blinked as stars disappeared behind them. Humanity was not returning with one ship. They were returning with fleets, armies of war machines larger than worlds. And the galaxy understood something dreadful. The humans had not been hiding. They had been building. The galaxy had seen the recordings. No one could deny it anymore. Humanity had returned, and their ships were no longer fleets of steel. They were floating worlds of war. Across every star system, reactions erupted like storms. In the Zirak Empire, fury burned hot. The supreme warlord pounded his clawed fist against the war table, splitting it in two. His generals bowed low, trembling in fear of his anger. We are Zirak. We bow to no deathworlders. Prepare every fleet, every soldier, every weapon. If humans want war, we will give them blood. But even as he shouted, his generals avoided his gaze. They had seen the footage. Their ships, proud and mighty, were like insects compared to the human behemoth. They whispered among themselves that war would mean extinction. The warlord's orders rang hollow, a scream against an unstoppable storm. In the Erythian Union, the mood was the opposite. Their council chamber was filled with fear, not anger. Chancellor Valora stood before the assembly, her voice shaking. We cannot fight them. We cannot run. The humans are too strong. The only choice is to speak, to beg for peace, to show them we do not stand against them. But others argued. Peace? Do you not see? They do not ask. They command. That message, follow us or fall, it was no offer. It was a warning. To kneel is to surrender forever. The chamber split into chaos. Half of the Erythian leaders begged to send envoys. Half demanded they begin evacuating their core worlds. For the first time in their history, the Union was breaking apart. On distant colonies, the fear turned to riots. Civilians shouted in the streets, "Better the humans than our rulers, better their rule than our death." Some tore down their empire's banners, replacing them with crude human symbols, desperate to show loyalty before the warships arrived. Others gathered weapons, swearing they would die free before serving deathworlders. Every empire faced the same storm: fear, doubt, division. And through it all, the humans said nothing more. Their giant warships drifted silently, unstoppable through the black. They fired no weapons. They conquered no planets. They simply moved, vast shadows across the stars, and their presence was enough to shatter the galaxy's courage. But some leaders were not content to wait. In a secret fortress hidden in a nebula, a coalition of warlords and generals gathered. They came from 6 empires, sworn enemies of each other, but now united by terror. The Zirak warlord snarled, "We cannot fight them one by one. Alone we are weak. Together we might stand. 1,000 ships for each human monster. Perhaps, then we can win." A reptilian admiral hissed in reply. "Fool, did you not see? Their weapons are cities. Their cannons are suns. Numbers will not matter. They will burn us as easily as a child burns ants." An insectoid queen clicked her mandibles, nervously. "Then what? Do we kneel? Do we become their slaves?" The chamber fell silent. It was then that the oldest among them, a scarred aquatic elder, spoke words none wished to hear. We do not yet understand their purpose. They did not destroy the patrols. They did not fire on colonies. They let us live. Why? The question spread like a cold wind. Why indeed? The answer came sooner than expected. Without warning, across 100 systems, every device lit up. Holoscreens, comms, even the smallest personal transmitters. The humans had sent another message. The voice was calm, steady, heavy with certainty. We are not here for conquest. Not yet. We are here because the galaxy must prepare. Something comes from beyond your stars, something that will not ask for surrender, something that will not leave survivors. We built our warships not for glory, but for survival. We will lead. Follow us, or be erased when the void awakens. The words cut deeper than any weapon. The galaxy had believed the humans were the threat. Now a new terror loomed, an enemy from outside the galaxy itself. Some leaders felt relief. If the humans spoke truth, then perhaps these giant warships were a shield, not a blade. Perhaps humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as saviors. Others scoffed. They called it lies, a human trick to gain power. There is no threat beyond the stars, the Zirak warlord growled. The only threat is humanity, and if we submit now, we will never be free again. But deep in their hearts, even the loudest doubters felt the same fear. What if the humans spoke the truth? What if something worse was out there and only the Terrans were ready to face it? The galaxy stood divided. Some begged for peace, some prepared for war. And all of them, whether in palaces or in slums, stared into the night sky with the same thought. If the humans had built warships larger than worlds to prepare for what was coming, then what was coming must be beyond imagination. The galaxy held its breath. The human warships had crossed borders, passed through systems and darkened skies above alien colonies. But they had not attacked. They had not fired. They had only spoken words that unsettled every empire. We built these ships for survival. Something comes from beyond your stars. At first, many dismissed it as lies. But then the signs began. In the farthest edges of known space, listening stations went silent. Whole star outposts vanished, their last transmissions filled with static and screams. Merchant convoys reported seeing shapes in the void, shadows that swallowed light moving faster than any ship should. And in one chilling case, a colony sent a single message before disappearing. The stars are dying. The galaxy panicked. Rumors spread that the humans had unleashed this horror themselves, that their stories of an enemy from beyond were a cover for their own power. But others remembered the tone of the human message. It had not been arrogant, nor boastful. It had been heavy, tired, as though spoken by a species that had seen what no one else dared imagine. The alien councils met, in chaos. Some demanded to join humanity at once, to submit before it was too late. Others swore they would never bow. But even as they argued, new evidence arrived. It was an Erythian probe, launched into the deep void far beyond the rim. Its final images showed something no one could explain. Vast black structures, alive yet not alive, stretching across the stars like roots of a great tree. They pulsed with energy, devouring starlight itself. And within the darkness, countless ships moved. Not human, not Zirak, not anything the galaxy had ever known. The probe was destroyed seconds later. When the images reached the alien councils, silence fell. For the first time in memory, no one argued. No one doubted. Humanity had spoken the truth. Something was coming. Something beyond imagination. And then the humans revealed the final truth. A great transmission filled the stars. It came not from one ship, but from thousands. Human warships, each larger than worlds, appeared across the galaxy in perfect formation. Together, their voices spoke as one, a single message broadcast into every mind. We left because we saw what was coming. Long before you noticed, long before you cared, we saw the shadow rising beyond this galaxy. We knew we were not ready. Our fleets were strong but not strong enough, so we vanished. We built. We forged weapons that could fight what you cannot face. We built ships that could carry the weight of survival itself. The images changed. They showed human fleets training in the dark void, firing weapons that shattered asteroids into dust. They showed colossal shipyards hidden beyond the galactic rim, where humans worked tirelessly for decades, constructing vessels bigger than continents. They showed battles, terrifying glimpses of humans fighting against strange, monstrous shapes in the black, holding them back at terrible cost. And then the voice grew sharper, more commanding. We did not return for conquest. We returned because the war is here. You have two choices. Stand with us, or be erased with those who stand against us. Humanity will not kneel. Humanity will not surrender. Humanity will fight, and we will lead. Across the galaxy, billions listened in silence. Some wept, some cheered, some trembled in fear, but all of them knew the same truth. The galaxy could no longer ignore humanity. In the Xeric Empire, the supreme warlord still shouted for war, but his generals no longer answered. Too many of their colonies had already declared loyalty to the HFY humans. Too many soldiers whispered of joining the Terrans instead. His empire was already collapsing. In the Erythian Union, Chancellor Valora bowed her head. She had argued for peace, for alliance, and now it was clear that humanity had spoken not with arrogance, but with burden. She declared before her people, "We will follow, not as slaves but as allies, for survival." And across countless worlds, banners fell, old rivalries dissolved, and new oaths were sworn. For the first time in galactic history, entire species set aside their differences, not for love, not for friendship, but for survival. And above them all, the human fleets gathered, their colossal ships casting shadows across stars. They were not just fleets anymore. They were guardians. They were war itself, shaped into steel and fire. The galaxy finally understood the truth. The humans had not vanished because they were weak. They had vanished because they had seen the future. They had built their ships not to rule the galaxy, but to save it. And now, standing on the edge of war, they had returned, not as wanderers, not as conquerors, but as leaders of the last hope. The age of humanity had begun, and when the enemy from beyond arrived, the galaxy would stand behind the Deathworlders, behind the humans, behind the ships larger than worlds, because in the end survival had only one name: humanity.